And friendship must be about something, even if we're only an enthusiasm for dominoes or white mice. Those who have nothing can share nothing. Those who are going nowhere have no fellow travelers. And I almost kind of wonder about we're talking yesterday something about like the intellectual orphans and how like there's just no substance to some places. I think that there's a like our society has gotten into like friendship is really beyond a lot of people because they have nothing to share. There is no intellectual development.
Welcome to the Simplified Organization podcast, 15-minute conversations with real moms about managing our homes and family life cheerfully to the glory of God. We can actually enjoy housework and love being homemakers when we focus on truth and work with gratitude. I'm Mystie Winckler, homemaker, homeschooler, and author of the book Simplified Organization: Learn to Love What Must Be Done. I write and podcast at Simply Convivial, and I run Convivial Circle, a community helping women to excel at homemaking and do life cheerfully. And in this episode today, I have part 3 of a conversation on friendship with 3 ladies from inside Convivial Circle. In previous parts of this conversation, we've talked about what friendship really means and some of the strengths and pitfalls of friendship. And today we talk about some particularly feminine struggles with friendships, as well as what we learn about friendship from Anne of Green Gables. Grab a basket of laundry to fold and let's continue this conversation. Yeah, I think there's the 2 different kinds. They start with that clubbableness, like we're on the same mission, but you can have the mom friend groups that are more on the just club and affection side. And you're going to hold some baseline things, but you're going to let a lot go. And you're not really, if there's no single driving mission that you are, like, it depends on the strength and the clarity of the mission that you're on.
And if you incorporate, so if you give that idea to your children, then you can both look at it together and you can be friends together because you've moved the affection towards something higher than both of you. And so you can be friends with your child in that sense and move from a solely affection relationship to a we are striving for this together.
Right. And I think when you have the kind of friendship like Lewis is talking about here, it's really not about the person's person and their circumstance and personality. It's like, hey, remember, we are this ideal thing, or we're working toward this ideal. And so the accountability and the calling out is because both of you have agreed on this bigger thing. And you can see that they aren't lining up with that and you help them see that. But just the companion club talking shop, which you have to have first. Yeah. Not all of those friendships end up giving you that kind of accountability.
And you can try and fail and try and fail and try and fail. And like he said, you can live your whole life without friendship. So it really is Christ who gives you people for yourselves. Like,
So I think kind of what you're getting at, Misty, is like the realization when I finally realized that I actually don't have to really be close friends with everybody who homeschools just because they homeschool, right? Like there is this idea like, oh, I know so-and-so, they homeschool, you guys must be friends. And well, actually, we don't have that much in common with our ideals. I'm more classical Charlotte Mason and they're more Abeka or whatever they choose. And so we actually aren't going. And so he talks about we have to be going in the same direction. And he talks about, and I think this is where I struggled for a long time, was like I just wanted friends and I didn't know that like how do you actually pursue friendship?
yeah.
And he says that is why those pathetic people who simply want friends can never make any. The very condition of having friends is that we should want something else besides friends. Where the truthful answer to the question, do you see the same truth, would be, I see nothing and I don't care about the truth. I only want a friend. No friendship can arise from that. Though affection, of course, may. There would be nothing for the friendship to be about. And friendship must be about something, even if we're only an enthusiasm for dominoes or white mice. Those who have nothing can share nothing. Those who are going nowhere have no fellow travelers. And I almost kind of wonder about we're talking yesterday something about like the intellectual orphans and how like there's just no substance to some places. I think that there's a like our society has gotten into like friendship is really beyond a lot of people because they have nothing to share. There is no
Also,
intellectual development.
he talks about it earlier. We've really messed up what we think friendship is with that progressive mindset. The people who honestly pursue friendship after ideals, who have ideas, who are pursuing them and find other people with ideas and meet together, they see that's gay. And
Mhm.
so if we're not confronting progressivism and saying no, and then pursuing ideas and sharing friendship based on ideas, the people who have fewer ideas naturally will say, because of our society, because we don't have moral virtue culturally, that
Mhm.
no, there's something else going on there that's dirty. And
The
that's
first time sorry, the
no.
first time I had that realization, ironically, because there's the connection here to Lewis, is I was watching The Lord of the Rings in high school, and it's a film adaptation, but I thought we have no idea how to have friendships, especially male friendships, and seeing not only the camaraderie, but just the intimacy between the fellowship. But there's nothing erotic about it. But to a society, I think, especially of men who there's actually so much effeminacy that there isn't this teaching of how even men can like what a masculine friendship looks like. It just hit me even as like a 16-year-old, like, oh, we don't know, we have no idea what friendship is about. And that it also made me think of where Lewis says, a world where all are companions and none are friends, they will have removed certain dangers, will also have taken from us what is almost our strongest safeguard against complete servitude, which made me think how interesting it is even the terminology that's used, like on Facebook, they're your friends. And this kind of getting into your subconscious, that I would say the co opting of language there. But everybody knows in their soul that isn't real friendship, and they're longing for the real friendship. And it made me think that we're in such a great time to offer the world what friendship really looks like.
I remember a time in college. The guy ended up being the best man in our wedding, and we actually have become friends over the years. But I was hanging out with my boyfriend at the time, now my husband. But we were hanging out, and he comes over, and he was like, said something was said about we're all friends. He goes, "No, we're not friends. We're acquaintances. We don't know each other well enough to be friends yet. You're an acquaintance, and you're the girlfriend of the acquaintance. What are you talking about?" And so, like, Facebook is actually not friends. It is a
No.
collection of acquaintances.
And I've actually
You're right. It has co-opted what
Yeah.
friendship actually is, and we have lost the
Yeah.
beauty and I think for a long time that was for me one of the things of like I longed for something more than what I was in the companionship. And it's hard to find
Mhm.
again those that are willing to go deep sometimes into
Mhm.
something else and that there is a higher level. But I think I also, as I was reading through some of this section, I reminded of Anna Green Gables always wanting a bosom friend. And when she finally
Mhm.
found her bosom friend,
Mhm.
but there was something there lasting. It started out as proximity, started out as, hey, do you want to be my friend? We're doing some things together. But then there became lasting things with their friendship.
and she had more friends than just Diana. Like that's the other
Right.
thing. Like
Yeah. Mhm.
Diana was
And
special,
I've
and they had a friendship for their whole life, and that was
And
precious.
later, though, their friendship changes too. And
Mhm.
I do think that Anne realizes that there was too much pressure put
Mhm.
there. And I'm gonna add this in. I know lots of people will not like me saying this, but I think that using like the term best friend with somebody can put too much pressure on a friendship,
Mhm.
because there will be seasons when you are closer to certain friends and not as close. And if there's this expectation that this is your only person and your only friend, your closest friend, I think it becomes too exclusive where there isn't that. there isn't that group dynamic that's even allowed almost anymore. And I know I mentioned that phrase before we even talked about that whole phenomenon of like the my person. And I think it puts too much pressure.
because it becomes a stuck together relationship. And
Mm-hmm.
it is, and so they don't have any individuality anymore. Like their
Ah,
identities, they have a
yes.
few, it becomes a fused identity when you get into
Mm,
that best friendship sort of thing. And that's
great
again,
point.
Lewis says that's not what we're after here at all.
Yeah.
It is,
Yeah.
it is supposed to be the more that if you are in a place where you think that if I don't have, if my best friend is spending time with somebody else and she's neglecting me, then you actually don't have true friendship. You have slipped off into a perversion of friendship.
I think that Anne and
Yeah.
Diana friendship is a good example of a friendship that mistake that women tend to make, which is the friendship is really
Mm-hmm.
in Anne's imagination.
Yeah.
It was
Mm-hmm.
basically affection, and it's taking friendship as close to Eros as possible, where it is
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
exclusive. This is about one another's persons, their
Mm-hmm.
souls. Yes.
And
Yeah.
she grows up and starts using bosom friend for everybody. Like she calls Aunt
Mm.
a bosom friend. Like she moves from you're my one bosom because she thinks it's only possible
Well,
to
and
be friends with one person.
she and Diana
Sure.
don't actually share ideas.
No, they don't.
And they grow up.
No.
I don't. Mm-mm.
And that's the thing is, and so Anne actually developed into actually having friendships with a lot of other places. And
Yes.
Diane kind of stayed into just, I just want companionship. I just want somebody that wants to talk about the kids in
Right.
the garden.
Yeah. Again, I've said this, Karen, to you and Kate, one of the best examples of character development throughout a series of all time. I love those books.
They also end in World War One. So the best place to look. It's actually one of the best historical fiction. I've never read one. That was the only historical fiction of World War One that I've read. And it was great. But the where you take Anne's idealism and her pursuit of virtue and work it out in her children, that is beautiful because her sons are brave, even though one of them struggles.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The fact that he faces his fears is there too, and the way that her friendships do work out and her children's friendships work out. You can see it
Mm-hmm.
because yeah, the things that we pursue as women, the friendships we pursue, the ideas we pursue do work out in our children's lives, even though we're not sitting here saying, I'm working out my idea of friendship right now so that you can have a good role model later. Like, and then our children get to grow up and just do it. And they get to stand on our shoulders and we get to stand on our parents' shoulders. And so the friendship
That makes me think of what Misty says in Convivial Homeschool. I really loved that part about what your dad shared with you, that he was expecting you to do better than he did, because that's how the Christian life works. Sorry, we're just reading that in my in-person book club that I'm now a part of. We just read it.
So I think one of the other things, like if we're looking back at the Anne and Diana friendship, like there was a piece of it that they both initially started off of empathy, right? There was an empathy wanting to feel as the other person feels. And Diana wanted to stay in that, just somebody to share my feelings with, and then matured into ideas and actually held truth and idealism much higher than that empathy piece. And that's where some of that, and I think that's where a lot of relationships, like why he says that you can't start with just pursuing a person for the person, because that's going to be pursuing like empathy. You're pursuing somebody to be empathetic with you. And as we know, empathy is the poison of all lasting relationships in reality. And that's what keeps us immature. And so if there is the anxiety and the empathy that is drawing the relationship, you're never actually going to pursue getting to that piece of true friendship, I think.
Because there's no self-differentiation getting you out of that untethered empathy.
Anne had already dealt with multiple sets of twins by the time she's looking for a relationship. So I feel like Anne's a really good place to start for women because she's starving for affection. She's starving for companionship. Doesn't have anyone mentoring her in her life. And she's dealt with 7 sets of twins already. So she's super immature and needs to grow. And she's handed Marilla, she's handed Matthew, she's handed Diana, and Diana's a piece of it. But it's only as she's, getting also meeting Josie and Rosa, Ruth. Like she
Ruthie, yeah.
all of her people do come together for all their vices and virtues and help her grow up.
For sure.
And order those affections. And as those pieces of her do have to be ground off as she's polished to become a true stone, her heart is broken. But I think in another piece of the Four Loves, Lewis says that if our hearts needs to be broken and it needs to be broken in this way, then so be it. Our heart is being broken by God to shape us to be more like him, and that is necessary. And our friends that are also helping us grow in this direction and are handed to us by God can help break our hearts in the directions that they need to be broken out of love.
Faithful are the wounds of a friend.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was going to say what I was going to come to.
It's unfortunate that, but very telling, I think, with where we are as a society, that the first Anne of Green Gables is typically the only book that people are familiar with. And that Anne is exemplified. And the later Annes, where she really does grow through like a beautiful maturing into a virtuous woman who is way more sober minded about everything. Most people haven't even read those books, and they really, and see, this is where I'm coming back to the first part of having a point of contention with the crown of life, where it just seems like what people are thinking of as the ideal of friendship now is this super intensity, like it's going to solve all my problems, and it's going to, again, there's going to be this self-actualization. It's going to be the crown of my life to have this bosom friend.
Like Tennyson, and then the boat the boat sinks and everything is lost.
Who's laughing at you for your good.
Yes. Oh, that was another great quote. I don't even know what the Lewis was reacting to, but he said, "God who made good laughter forbid." And I just love that. You need people to laugh at you. Who else is going to laugh at you? Your husband probably knows he can't laugh at you. Mine does. Mine does.
We should allow our husbands to be laughing at us. And it's interesting that he brings up the laughter, because of course we've all read Failure of Nerve, and one of the critical pieces of a healthy relationship is that there is humor that is regularly infused. Oh, and it makes me think of that quote at the end: "The man please thy maker and be merry, and give not for this world a cherry." I thought that was a fun little quote at the end.
Friendships aren't really about the relationship. Friendships are relationships built on something more. We have to have personal growth, interests, and direction for friendships to form, which means we also have to share about them. Where can you have conversations in your real life about meal planning, home routines, personal productivity, homeschooling, and other hobbies, so that through those conversations about personal growth and big ideas, the opportunity for deeper friendship to form might happen? As C.S. Lewis says, friendships might seem like they come by chance, but there is no such thing as chance. God is superintending and stage directing it all. So we can pray and trust and walk in faithfulness ourselves and trust that He will provide the companions that we need. Now, you don't want to miss the final part of our conversation together, where we talk about how women can mess up the friendships of men and why we need women friends as women, while also letting men have friendships with men as well.